how African communities can impact electoral outcomes.
And so the engagement this time around has been strong, and that is exciting to see. I think that we still have some more work to do as far as making sure that we have people coming out to vote consistently, and not just in presidential election years. You know, the midterms are also important, but we are getting to a point whereby there is clearly a growing voting bloc, and that it's important to pay attention to the needs of those communities.
The last time you were here back in May, my goodness, time flies so fast.
Yeah.
We were talking about how African communities can impact electoral outcomes. How's that going so far, with these elections around the corner, Annette?
I think that there has been a realization amongst the political infrastructure about the significance of the African diaspora and the impact that they have as far as votes are concerned. And so the engagement this time around has been strong, and that is exciting to see. I think that we still have some more work to do as far as making sure that we have people coming out to vote consistently, and not just in presidential election years. You know, the midterms are also important, but we are getting to a point whereby there is clearly a growing voting bloc, and that it's important to pay attention to the needs of those communities.
Okay, interesting. I can see, more people are tuning in. Esther Mulusa is saying you got it. Ka. She says, Hamala it is, with a KH. My MP in Lurambi, Shimalavandu, is Bishop Hamala. So I don't know whether there's any relationship with our Kamala here. Esther Mulusa, please type up there and let us know. And then Uno Mike today yuko kwa comment, amekuwa mpenzi mchangiaji, anasema ndani kama SIM card. And then we have someone from Trump Nation, Grizzly Proxy. So Trump Nation is in the building. So Grizzly, please type up and tell us, what you feel about Trump Nation, if you're planning to vote for Trump. And if you want to tell us something about what Kenyans are saying about supporting Trump. So Grizzly Proxy, please let us know. Sabijua, welcome to the One Mic Show. And I can see Brown Sugar Jones Min Otis, welcome to the One Mic Show. Now, Annette, I want to come back to you. Now, even before I go back to our fellow panelists, we have Omosh Fire, we have Uno Mike, and we have Mika who are on Zoom today. They're all working remotely without permission. We're going to sort that out later. But before we get to the Trump supporters, Annette, let's talk about the Angela Alsobrook campaign. She's running against former Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan for the U.S. Senate. If she wins, this might be the first time that we are seeing a black governor and a black senator serve at the same time. How is that campaign going? Is there any surprises we might expect, like we did when Larry Hogan was running the first time for governor? How's the campaign going?
The campaign is strong. I was at the headquarters last week, the first day of early voting. It was very exciting to see the different early voting locations and how there were lines. And, for those of you who were patient enough to stand in those lines to early vote, I think it's really important. It's good to see the commitment. There is a great atmosphere there at headquarters. We're still doing the work. A lot of the work is, calling and helping people make a plan for voting, helping people understand how they can get information about where they can vote, things of that nature. Recently, I heard that Obama was at the office, did a surprise visit yesterday. And so that was exciting for the volunteers who really are the ones who do the work of the campaign. So that was an exciting thing to see, because this is an important race. It's not being taken lightly. It's something that's being watched nationally. So for all of our listeners who are in different states, first and foremost, every senator, there's 2 senators for each state, and they are going to be voting on things that affect every single one of us. So although this is a Maryland race, it has implications for the entire country. And there's a lot of national attention on it because it is a tough race. It is a tight race. Larry Hogan was the governor. Everyone knows his name. He has that name recognition. And he didn't have a bad reputation. He was very well liked, and so that is a tough battle. That he was, I guess, a really good pick for the Republican side. However, I wouldn't just say that he is the best pick overall just because he's well known.
Okay.
And I think it's important for us to think critically about our choices and what that means for us moving forward in Maryland.
Okay, all right, good. That will be an interesting race. It's one of those that we will be watching closely. I can see Aaron Dunda is tuned in on YouTube. She says, this one, I can't wait, man. Hiyo mambo trip ndio sijaelewa kabisa. Locked in from Oslo. Good to see you. I think Ira meant Trump. And then I can see Tyron Motif is saying, hey, everyone. So our YouTube people, karibuni sana. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are gonna be reading your comments. Now here, Slay is saying he should actually call in. I think Slay is referring to Grizzly Proxy, who is a Trump supporter.
Yes, call in.
And he says he will call in. Grizzly Proxy will say he'll call in. This is a safe space. I want all Trump supporters who are tuned in. This is a safe space. We're out here to learn from you. We're out here to listen to you and understand. This has been
Trump supporter.
Okay, all right. But he said he will call. So Grizzly, let us know. But he said he will call in. He said Trump Nation. And then Washeke anasema Ali, mimi sisalimiwi leo. Washeke, apologies. I must have skipped your name. Tutasoti hapa. Tutasort kando nyuma ya tent. But Washeke, karibu sana, representing San Antonio, Texas. Thank you so much. Texas always deeply representing us in the building. And then I can see Luis Moya is tuned in. Usaju Lugogo, asante sana for tuning in. And then Indefatigable Wanjeri, yo jina ya kwanza, like always gives me troubles, it's such a, whatever that Wanjeri is tuned in from Baltimore. Not Baltimore, sorry, I meant Boston. Boston, Baltimore, kind of same demographic, so maybe sometimes we confuse them. I meant Kenyan demographic. And then...
Ali, Apple, umechoma.
History.
You may want to go back slowly on that one, endelea.
No worries at all. Sawa. So I also want to take this opportunity to also invite the rest of the panel. They're hungry. They're not in the studio. They're working remotely without authorization. But that we're going to deal with later. So I'm going to start with DJ Omoshfire. DJ Omoshfire, karibu sana. Let us know where you're located, why you're working remotely, unauthorized, and if you have already voted. DJ Omoshfire, twende kazi.
Sema sama. Asanteni wasikilizaji, wachangiaji, watazamaji na watu wetu wote. Karibuni to the One Mic Show. That part about working from home without authorization is a myth, because as long as VPN can connect, you connect and you work. And that is exactly what is happening at this point. So we'll continue. Now, past that, have I voted? Yeah, that's my answer. But come Tuesday, I will be there standing front and center, 8 a.m. I'll be there, lined up, ready to vote.
What were last minute? All Kenyan style?
Actually, this is the second time that I'm actually going to vote on election day. Most times I do early voting. I don't believe in the mail-in thing. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's my Kenyanness of not believing how the system works. But once you've been threatened and told that if you do the mail-in ballot and then you decide to change your mind and actually go in to vote, then you become a provisional ballot, which means you only counted if there's a close tie. And then we saw what happened with those ballots that had been recorded in those
Oregon.
Boxes
in Oregon.
That were burnt.
Yes, that was in Oregon.
I'm feeling some sort of kind of way about that whole thing.
Okay.
So yeah, but I will be counted front and center come Tuesday.
All right.
Even if I have to go to Gaithersburg to vote.
Apana, now that right there, that's called rigging. That happens in Kenya, where people go and vote in 3 different constituencies. But anyway, karibu sana DJ Moshfire. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for logging in remotely. Unauthorized work from home. Our career expert here, Tabitha Njeri, is saying, waweke performance improvement plan. Tabitha, you're going to help me with that. I think it's about time. These people who do not come to work and work from home unauthorized need to go on a performance improvement plan. And then we have here Slay Odwara nasema we need you on site. Mimo Koinange, karibu sana. And then Washeke says Omosh Fire, bado tunangojea pesa ya brown envelope ya ATL. So money is being waited for by Washeke from Omosh. And Alan Amani Anami, karibu sana. Yes,
Ali bana, si you at least hata unitete kidogo bana. Si tunaona kuna serikali mpya imeingia hapo kwa second in command. Things have changed.
I mean, if you could give me something on the brown envelope, then naweza kukutetea. But so far,
boss bana, things changed bana. Yeah. So unaona hata siku hizi Jalang'wa ongeagi. Things have changed.
Haya, sawa. Na Slay anasema, does anyone know if they will get a chance to vote? I think she's referring to those people whose votes were banned down, but we're going to find out about that. We're going to ask Slay. Gonna go to Mika Och, karibu sana. Tell us, if you voted and what you think is going to be happening on the show tonight. Mika, twende kazi.
Hey, thank you very much, Ali. I want to first of all welcome wapenzi wapendwa wachangiaji. How are you? Thank you for joining us this Friday. Today tunaona kuna jamaa alikata kukuja kazi na mwingine amekuja tu kazi kwa sababu amepata kompyuta kwa nyumba, ama pia yangekuja kazi, but it's okay. Absconders tunawaona. Unajua Christmas bonus inakaribia. Tutaongea na HR wakati mshahara. All in all, yeah, I voted last Friday. I remember when I came to the show on Friday, I said I voted. So among one of those people who decided to go and vote early. Actually, all elections, I think only 2 local elections that I've gone to vote on that same voting day. The thing that I'm thinking that is going to happen with these elections is there is a pattern on the other side, and in that pattern right now we are seeing a lot of dirty works trying to be played. We're seeing a lot of election denying already started. We're seeing a lot of people trying to ban ballot collection boxes. There's a fear, and that fear is warranted, and it's true, and it's warranted because they know they don't have a good candidate, and they fear that it's like they want to use some force tactics on them winning these elections. And these are one of the most important elections in this country, because that other base has been told that we are going to return to Jim Crow rules, and we are trying to save humanity as it is. Imagine Trump as the leader of the free world, the guy with the nuke buttons, the biggest economy, and is always flirting with dictators. And you can see, if you follow geopolitics, you can see right now we have North Korean troops that have joined Russia, and they're looking to attack Ukraine. You don't know why they're waiting right near when the elections are closed, and then they're waiting for how the elections to go so that they decide if they attack. So it means they believe that they've put their guy there, when they put their puppet there, and the world is on the brink of World War III. So it's something that you have to consider when you're voting. It's not just looking at it from an American perspective and what you're getting, but look at it from a bigger picture. So even if you're in Kenya, let's say there was a war that broke out right now between America, Russia, China. Do you think Kenya will survive in any way? Do you think you'll be able to get the supplies that you get and you're living your life? Ruto atawaibia kila kitu mko nayo na mkauke mkufe njaa, because kila kitu kimefungwa. When there's war, everything will be directed to where the war is. So it's one of those elections whereby you have to not just look at it. There's a factor in elections, you might like somebody because they sound funny, because they make people who you don't like. They don't like people who you don't like. But this is an election whereby you ask yourself, how is it going to consequently hurt me in the long run?
Okay.
And it is going to have an impact in how the world is going to be.
Okay, asante sana Mika Och. This is going to be an interesting election, and tonight is also going to be an interesting episode as we wait to hear from the Trump supporters and what they have to say. Now, I don't know whether Unomaika is also tuned in on Zoom ama kama yeye pia amekuwa ni mpenzi mchangiaji. Huyo ni mwingine, no call, no show. So Tabitha, please give me a special plan for OneMic, because he's a no call, no show. We can see him tuned in on the show. You know, like he's supposed to be here running the board, but he's missing in action. Tutadil na yeye baadaye. And then I can see TCTV1 all the way from Seattle is watching us. Thank you so much. He's saying thank you for taking up Lemfi. So TCTV1, please click on that link and download the app or share it with your crew in Seattle. In fact, we need to connect because we've seen you also have a lot of good content from out there in Seattle, Washington. That's becoming another stronghold for Kenyans. For people who want to learn about the demographics for Kenyans, come 2027, because we are working on a plan to have everyone get a polling station close to them in Kenya's 2027 elections. Seattle is a place to watch. Seattle, Washington. And then I can see Iran Dunda is saying, Maze, Trump, we so scared Hadi tumetuma support because we know this will affect the West and the world at large. It's not even about the political views. How do people even not get it there? Ndo hivyo sasa. That is what we're dealing with. It's not just people. It's our own very Kenyans. It's our own very Kenyans who are showing support for Trump. We want to, stay out here and hear from them. Now, before we go back to Annette, I can see, some comments here coming based on the people who are missing in action in studio today. Slayer anasema wasalimiwe. And then I can see Tyrus K is tuned in. Thank you so much, Tyrus, for tuning in. Sheke is saying, is telling Tabitha, PIP mara that for Unomic and for DJ Omosh Fire. So do something, Tabitha. We need something real quick because they're getting too comfortable. And then Apa Tyrus anasema, yep, he has already said PA is cheating. Yes, Trump has already said PA is cheating. We've seen that on his social media postings and in other spaces that people have been repeating, posting that. And then Tabitha is saying, can we see studio picture alongside Mika? Apo sasa, I don't know. Apo sasa, that I'm going to leave to Mubelwa Bandio. He's the one who's running the boards today. He will talk to us later. He's stepping in for Udo Mike, who just decided that no call, no show. At least...
No. Kuna watu wanapata election fever. Uno kapata election diarrhea.
Uno amepata election diarrhea. So he didn't show up. At least Omosh worked remotely. But Uno did not show up, and he's unapologetically enjoying the show from wherever he is. Here he will need a special plan. So he can't even
yenyewe Ali munafanya mbaya kwa Uno bana. Kuna mtu anafaa kumtetea because unaona hata hawezi ongea. Afadhali
no, he's enjoying the show. Afadhali hata kama angekuwa tuned in, we would have said maybe he has an emergency. But
no, Mubelo told you he has an emergency. Si sahi anatumia Imodium.
Well,
kaini
okay.
Tu pole tu. Kaini pole.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah, and then Slayer and Anauliza, I was about to ask why his video is off. And then anasema mnachoma. Anyway, back to studio. Now, before actually, I want to remind the listeners first that tonight's show is brought to you courtesy of Money Transfer app Lemfi. The OneMicShow is offering $30 for the first $100 sent on your first transaction using the code OneMic. So those of you on YouTube and Facebook, you see that pin link there, click on that, download it, get your $30, and thank you so much. Now, before we get down, Annette, now to you, before we get down to issues surrounding the election campaign, Kenyans in the US have traditionally voted Democratic. Now, this is the third time Trump is running for president, and there was always a few outliers supporting him. What are your initial thoughts on why we've seen the number of MAGA supporters grow significantly amongst Kenyans from the trickle that we had in 2016 to what we have right now, what is it that essentially changed within the community for this to happen? Annette?
I think there are several factors that contribute to something like this. And I believe that it's best to hear from them. So if you're listening, please call in and let us know what shifted, if you've been a longtime Republican, or what the motivating factor is. But a lot of times it boils down to one or two issues. And so there are some issues that are very important within that particular group of individuals. And I don't want to speak for them, which is why I asked them to call in. But some of the issues might be from a moral or religious perspective when it comes to some of the issues that are being debated right now. And some of it might have to do from a financial perspective. That particular one is most interesting to me because when it comes to financial issues, we have the numbers. We know what people are making. We know what's going on as far as inflation and GDP and things like that. And so that one is a little bit, I guess, easier to talk to as far as like hard numbers.
But I'll push back a bit and I'll say I'll give the basics. I'm speaking on their behalf because this is things they've told me.
Okay.
This is things they're saying. One of the things that they've said is groceries were more affordable under Trump. In fact, even someone told me, he's been tracking the cost of a 6-pack of Guinness, and it has really shot up, it was much more affordable under Trump, but now it's much more expensive. So these are things that they're saying. And to be fair to them, there's been, quite some inflation,
right,
like when it comes to day-to-day stuff that we buy from the grocery store and other places. So this is what some of them are saying.
And I think that's very legitimate. It's it is true that going to the grocery store today is tougher than it was back then. We also never experienced a pandemic, and we're still feeling the aftershocks of that. COVID really affected so many industries in very complex ways that has never happened before, so we can't just oversimplify that. But also, I could easily say, when I first got a car, I was paying gas that was less than $2, and today I'm paying double that. It was way back, better back then. That would be missing out on a lot of economic legislation that had occurred since then, and then also the lag that happened. So if someone signs a bill today to create some sort of relief or create some sort of economic plan, the effects of that are going to be felt over 2+ years, right? And so there might be somebody else in office when you're feeling that. Trump inherited a really great economy. And when he inherited that economy, the person whom he inherited it from was not a Republican. And that's important to note. So he had the opportunity.
It was Obama.
Yeah. And so he had the opportunity to then take it from where it was, which was great, and make it so much better. And if we're not including the pandemic in the 2 years that he was in office, that's not what happened there. Because of the type of economic plans that he was enacting at the time, there actually was negative effects on the economy for the average person. And then have that, the pandemic happened, that of course hit everyone very, very hard. So by the time the next person was coming in, the delayed reaction, like I was talking about before, what was inherited was a not so great economy.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Mika, Mika, I'll come to you.
What Annette just said.
Just before you get in, Mika, there was also one thing I wanted to point out, piggybacking on what Annette said, and this is wearing now my economist hat, is there's something called lag in economics.
Yes.
A lag is basically whenever you implement something, you don't see the effects right there and then. It's not instant coffee. So essentially, especially those first 2 years in Obama's, or rather in Trump's administration, it was basically, they were basically riding on the policies, on the good policies of Obama. So the good prices that you saw, everything that you saw during that particular period of time was riding on what Obama had been doing for a period of 8 years. Because you remember when Obama took over, the economy was falling apart. It was after the financial crisis. So they put a lot of measures together. So that's the first 2 years. So again, addressing the Trump supporters who are saying, like things were cheaper, groceries were cheaper, or like the way someone was saying a 6-pack of Guinness was cheaper. It was based on the lag from Obama's economy. And then, Mika, there was something that you wanted to add on to that.
Yeah, something I wanted to add onto that, and we're going to do with the lag. So if you guys remember when Trump came when Trump came in as president, and there was that Obama lag that carried him for the first 2 years, but there were a lot of executive orders and tariffs that he imposed. He imposed tariffs that actually hurt farmers in America, making production of food to become more expensive. So when those tariffs kicked up, that is when you saw your local produce, your food produce started going up. The price of meat, eggs, fruits, vegetables started going up, which affected that. Another thing that Trump did is that, remember, when due to Obama's policy and the deal he had negotiated with OPEC on the petroleum production, if you guys remember, there was a time whereby oil companies were not doing so well because the production was there, gases were low. There was a point up to at least gas had gone up to $2. What did MBS and Putin do? They went and Trump went and told them, reduce production because, hey, my oil and gas people in my country are suffering. They're saying production is too much. You guys need to reduce production so they can start increasing production and make money. And that is how the price of gas went up. And unfortunately for him, a pandemic happened while he had gone through with his plan. So when the production of oil from OPEC reduced, what happened? The price of gas went up. Price of gas goes up. What does it happen? It affects the whole supply chain, because now the supply chain has to buy gas expensive. That produce will go back to you. I'm somebody who drinks whiskey. A bottle of whiskey when Obama was president, a bottle of Macallan was going for $45, $50. A bottle of Macallan right now goes for $80. Why? Tariffs. He imposed tariffs in imported alcohol. Huyo jamaa anakuambia Guinness ilikuwa $6. Guinness ni imported. Heineken ni imported. Corona ni imported. 70% of the beer drank in America is imported. It's not American beer. So it's going to go up in price. Things in the grocery stores come from China and come from Europe. They're going to go up in price if you put tariffs onto them. So when you see these prices going up, it's a delayed effect on his policy that he put in. Let's go back to taxes. Last year, when people were getting their tax returns and they found that they were owing, and they found that they had to change how they are writing the tax reports. What was it? Because of a law that Trump had written, it was taking effect that year. So when he gave you those little tax breaks when he first got into office, and you are celebrating that is good for you, and he had majority of the people, because in Trump's economy, unless you're making more than 400,000, if you're making between 100,000 and 400,000, you suffer, and that's the majority of most of the working, of most people, most families in America. They're paying too much taxes to cover for the billionaires and to cover for the low tax earners to be able to give them that money. But it came and beat them in their behind again. So you can say he's good in the economy. He's good in the economy when he finds a good person has fixed the economy, rides on their coattails. Then by the time his policies start affecting you, he's long gone, and you start saying, oh, the next person to messed it up. No, everything you're going through right now, blame this guy you're trying to give the economy to back. He's the one who messed it up. And what did he say? He's going to appoint Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is the one who's going to be the chief advisor of how the economy is going to run. What did Elon Musk say? Americans will have to learn to live within their means for a few years. Okay. What does that mean? Ask yourself, what does that mean?
Oh, wow. Very, very interesting analysis coming from Mika. And if there's anyone who's a Trump supporter who wants to counter this, feel free to call. The number to call is 202-683-5685. 4570. Press *5 to speak. Please, if you want to counter, give us a call or type it in the comments and let us know. So this was based on that basic question that on one of the statements that the Kenyans were supporting Trump are saying things were more affordable. Groceries were cheaper. Alcohol was cheaper. Everything was cheaper under Trump. So an explanation that came from Annette, like also expressing that there was a lag from Obama's policies into Trump's administration. Then, of course, some of the items that you're seeing prices going up, these were tariffs that he had imposed, and that's where you saw the prices going up. So that's part of the reason why the prices went up. I lost a couple of comments here, but I'm going to read a few that I can still see. Tabitha and Jerry saying, Democrats seem to always recover the economy after Republicans. Remember what Clinton said at the convention. And then let me see. When Jerry's saying, just like Bill Clinton got lucky and inherited a great economy thanks to policies of Bush Sr., who in turn got screwed by Reagan tax cuts and Reaganomics. Kofefe was a beneficiary of Obama's economic policies. Tell us who is Kofefe, Wanjeri. Please type and tell us who Kofefe is. And then Apa Tabitha is happy with what Mika Ocha said. Mika is on fire with the points. And then Wanjeri is saying, Washeke, I thought it was me. It's all these people who didn't show up for work. Yeah, so yes, there we go. So there was someone who was saying that the video keeps cutting off, but I think that has been fixed. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. And I want to remind the listeners, actually, before we go to that, I want to go to a few comments here that I also saw coming on YouTube. I can see Mburwa Wairimo, JB watching from Baltimore. Thank you so much. At least Baltimore got represented, man, because Texas is always takes the cake. And then we have Pukimanjaro all the way from Amsterdam, Anasema Tuko. Welcome to the One Mic Show, Pukimanjaro. And then Ira has a question here saying, is there a possibility to vote blank at worst? Because voting Trump ni makosa, because he evidently has no know-how on running a country. Evidently, he's lived on Obama's results and policies. And then voting Trump is no solution. If he wins, we'll suffer more. That's coming from Iran Dunda. I hope the Trump supporters out here are listening. And I want to remind everyone that you're tuned into the One Mic Show, and I'm your host and producer, Ali Badawi. We are here talking to Baltimore-based social justice activist and our U.S. political and cultural contributor, Miss Annette Karanja. She's here today talking to Kenyan MAGA supporters, telling them what they need to understand about false promises made by Trump. Annette has been busy on the campaign trail for the Maryland Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate, Miss Angela Alsobrooks. She's been making a passionate case on why Kenyan MAGA supporters should abandon Trump and vote for Kamala. We'll shortly be talking about issues around Trump's position on abortion and matters relating to America's moral fabric, including the LGBTQ issue and the transgender issue. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking about that shortly. Our lines are open, and the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Feel free to call in. And I want to remind you again, tonight's show is brought to you courtesy of Money Sending App Lemfi. The One Mic Show is offering $30 for the first $100 sent on your first transaction using the code OneMic. Feel free to share that link with family and friends. Feel free to share it with, like ex-girlfriends, ex-wives, future wives, everything. Share with all of them, because someone has to send money home somewhat, some way. And Lemfi currently is offering one of the best transfer rates, so please check it out. Now, coming back to the studio, Annette, there are still some common beliefs that are coming out of these Kenyan Trump supporters. I've been talking to a lot of them. You know, if you've been on my wall, you've been seeing some of the comments they've been making. They say, for example, Trump is better for immigration because he deported fewer people. So how do you challenge that? A Trumper who says that, says Trump did not deport as many people, so he's better for immigration.
Wow. One, I would love to see those numbers. I don't know how accurate that is as far as numbers are concerned. But when it comes to immigration, I don't first look at deportation, because by the time we're getting to deportation, so many things have happened before we got there, right? So we're talking about going through the immigration legal process, and there are many steps. And those who have been through those processes know that there are many steps leading up to the point before you get deported. Like deportation sometimes might be the result of after a year or two or however long of legal action. So I wouldn't start at that very final point. It's what
but to that final point, you know, like, to be fair to them, and Obama, if you look year by year, Obama's peak years, there was a very high number. He deported more people than Trump did. Now, Trump's peak years were way more than Biden's. You know, that's another thing that people are not talking about. So you'll see they will mention that Obama deported more people than Trump. And remember, of course, Obama had 8 years. There's a number that's being quoted where they're saying Obama deported 3 million, which was over 8 years, and Trump deported 1 point something million, which was over 4 years. But when you look at Biden's numbers, they were much less. Mika, you had something real quick before we go back to Annette. Mika.
Yeah, again, facts. Mimi, his story, the immigration, let's start with facts. Let's start with when the guy got into office. What was the first thing he did? He put a ban on 6 Muslim countries, right? And those 6 Muslim countries that he put a ban on, he said that they cannot accept refugees from those countries. He deported refugees that come from those countries, not even illegal immigrants, refugees. Right? People will come here legally looking for refuge. He deported refugees from those 6 Islam countries. And what did he do? Remember, he's the person who created concentration camps for immigrants. And in those concentration camps for immigrants is where children were separated from parents, and those children have not been found up to now. Right? Those children that immigrants that were caught from the Mexican border were not caught up to now. He's the person who campaigned on building a wall he couldn't even make it. He couldn't build that wall. He couldn't get the money to build it. He said Mexico are going to pay for it. That wall that he campaigned on how he's going to build for it, he went and did what? He went and defunded the USCIS, causing an increase in immigration fees, which made immigration difficult for people to get because the fees were going so high, which again led to a lot of people getting out of status and led to people not being able to fast track their way. He stopped his way to citizenship. Right now, in his Project 2025, he's saying that he's going to go after citizenships. He's not even going after the illegal immigrants alone. He's going after citizenships. So wewe Mkenya, ulimari msoa mapepa, wataenda kureview file yako, na umemfurahia, ulimpigia kura, ujipata umerudi Kenya. No president wako mwenye unafurahia. Because let's not sit here and pretend that immigration was an easy task, right? They're going to look at your taxes. They're going to look at how you live. They're going to look at criminal records. They're looking at ways on purging the voter registry. And how do you purge the voter registry? Go for the legal immigrants who can vote. So it's not like you're sitting here and just because you voted for Trump, you stop being an immigrant. You are an immigrant. You are not born here. You don't have the color they like. And guess what? You're not born here. You're a foreigner.
Okay.
So assuming that he's good for immigration, what immigration are you talking about? Because if you assume just because you're a Republican, you're never going to get into it, you won't be included. You will not be on the boat with us when you are being chased away. My friend, nakwambia tutakuwa tunakucheka kwa hiyo meli sisi tukikuangalia hivi. At least sisi tulikuwa tuko ready tunajua kishinda tunaenda huko.
Okay. Mika making a very solid case. Let me come back to studio to Annette. You were talking about those numbers and where we should start looking before we look at those numbers that are being shouted out there. Annette.
Right. So like I said, the legal process doesn't start at deportation. There's a whole process that happens before that. And something that's very important to note is that under Trump, the Office of Immigration did not function very well. If you had something, if you were in the legal process during that time, you had a difficult time. It wasn't a quick and speedy process. And if the things are working efficiently, then like during Obama's time, you are going to have more activity happening, and therefore you're going to churn bigger numbers. So the numbers for deportation are going to be bigger, but so are the asylum seeker numbers. So are the numbers for people who have been waiting for their green card, been participating and paying taxes here, and have been participating here for many years. Those are also going to happen faster for those who desire to then take it from the green card and become citizens here. Trump is a person who did not even take the time to do a short little video welcoming those who became naturalized. If you got naturalized during the Trump administration, then you did the little swearing in or whatever, and crickets. It was nothing. Every other president has done a short video welcoming and saying, you have officially taken this step, and whatever encouraging words that they chose for that. Trump could not be bothered. If you cannot be bothered to do something as simple as say hello to someone, like I just don't see myself voting for somebody who wouldn't even have the decency. In the South we talk about like that Southern politeness and all of that. Like you just say hello to your neighbor and wave. And I mean, if this person can't even say hello to me when I am coming into the space that we are now sharing and cohabitating, and that's not a person that I would trust with any of the legal processes that have to do with immigration. That doesn't make sense to me, and honestly, if you're in Kenya and you're a Trump supporter and you think things are going to go well for you, tell me how quick it is right now to get a visa to come to America, and ask and think about why it is that we have the backlog that we have. It's because of those inefficiencies that we're talking about. So Mika mentioned the Muslim ban. The Muslim ban that happened, and I think it was
right after he got sworn in, because I remember we were going to Massachusetts Avenue in DC at the mosque there. That's where we were protesting.
Okay.
That was right after the swearing in.
Right. So the election happened in 2016 November. He gets sworn in January 2017.
Yep.
Immediately Muslim ban, right?
Yep.
And so
total ban.
Total ban. I mean, it was unprecedented. We haven't seen something like that, and also with all of the fanfare, like the excitement and the pride behind it. That was interesting. So that happened in 2017. Today we are here in 2024, and there are people who are still feeling the ramifications of that ban, even though it's been overturned. So someone who was just about to maybe come back home, had the financial burden of not being able to leave where they were to come back to their homes, probably lost their jobs, so on and so forth. That's one example. Another are those who went through the legal mechanisms for reunification of their families. We're not talking about some sort of weird conspiracy. We're just talking about people wanting to see their parents, someone wanting to have their child in the same area as them, in the same home as them, not being able to do so because of this ban, and therefore being delayed and being part of the backlog. So I was reading recently, there was an article done by the National Immigration Law Center, and it talked about not only, and here's the thing, there are multi-layer effects of Trump's presidency. Because he was the president, he was able to appoint judges, not just the Supreme Court judges, but there are other judges who got appointed, right? And so in the process of trying to deal with the Muslim ban, there were class action lawsuits that went into the federal courts. Well, if the judge happened to be a Trump appointee, that case did not go anywhere. And so by the time these lawsuits, I think there were two major ones, by the time they got to a judge who was actually going to do something about it, that particular judge said that the process had been careless and obstructive and wholly unjust when it comes to the individuals who are affected by the Muslim ban, and therefore were suing as a class action. It delayed reunification, and they recently made some leeway in May of 2024. So this ban happened in 2017.
Yes.
Okay. Now imagine you're trying to fight to get your child who is 6 years old to come. In 2017, they're 6 years old. We're in 2024. Does that child know you? What can you ever get that time back?
No, that's time lost, especially the family reunification part. That's where there's been a lot of that's where there's been a very big mess. You know, like families have fallen apart.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
People
so
are divorced.
I'm a grown woman, and my father had to go back home, unfortunately, for a funeral, and his flight got delayed, and I didn't like it. You know, I'm talking about a couple of days, and I want him back in my vicinity. This is an important person to me. I need him to come to Reagan immediately, you know, but there was a delay, and that had nothing to do with any type of legal issues. It's just, you know, people were protesting in Kenya and whatever was happening back then, you know. So can you imagine now, not just a couple of days, not being delayed a week, being
by years,
you know. And so my heart goes out to those individuals. Trump was not better for immigration if there are lawsuits happening today based on the actions that happened
almost 8 years ago.
And the backlog.
So